Hello and welcome along. This is the Transfer Show. Myself and Mark McAdam will have the very latest on all the big deals. Let's look at some of the big talking points in this transfer window. Sky, one that is emerging is Alexander Isak. The Newcastle United boss, Eddie Howe, spoke to the media after today's defeat to Arsenal and was asked if Isak would be flying out at all for the tour. This was his response.
It's business as usual for the players. You know, you don't get a chance when you come onto these tours to think of anything other than training, the next game. The level's so high that even in these games we have to be very well prepared. We have to try and be at our best. So naturally, I think we're going to miss a player of Alex's quality, and the group are going to feel that. There's no denying that, and I can't sit here and claim that they won't. But they're a very professional group of players, and they're doing brilliant as far as I can see in terms of managing the situation. Well, I think every player in our squad has to be ready to play. That would be my message to every single man in the squad. We don't have the biggest squad in the Premier League, so every person has to contribute, and I'd have no hesitation in picking anybody. Yeah, I mean, of course, we're not deluded. We know that we need to bring players in. We've known that for a long time. The tail end of last season, as I said, we did all the work. We know who we wanted. It's been a challenging transfer window. Let's see what we can do towards the end of it.
So those are thoughts of Eddie Howe, Sky. Does it feel inevitable that Alexander Isak won't be a Newcastle United player come the end of this window?
We're going to look at the situation and say, who's desperate for him? You know, people are talking about him going to Liverpool, and then Liverpool made a big sign-in. So this all goes back to a player's contract and how a player's contract is structured. So agents have got to structure players' contracts so that they don't find themselves in a position where they can't move if they want to move, or they can't have a say in their own life, in their own career. I mean, the player's still got 3 years left. He hasn't got a buyout clause. I mean, for me, you know, if strikers are so highly sought after that you've got to structure players' contracts so that they've got 2 years left or they've got 1 year left, and then they can have a say. But 3 years left, it's not easy for him to leave. And why should Newcastle put themselves in a situation where they don't have a top-line striker in their squad? And people are talking about other players coming in, but what clubs normally do is they'll bring a player in so that it looks like they've overloaded with players, but then they're already behind the scenes doing a deal for a player to go out. I just can't see that deal happening easily.
No.
Yeah, and the player's got 3 years left. Maybe if it was 2 years, he could say, I'm not signing a new contract. But for Newcastle, remember, it's a massive club with big support. I don't see who's desperate for him, and I don't see why Newcastle should be desperate to sell him.
Sky, his head has clearly been turned, though, with Liverpool's interest. Just put yourself in the position of Alexander Isak's agent. Just give us an insight into it. What would your advice to be to him at this stage?
First and foremost, the reason why agents get players to sign long-term deals is because commission. Obviously, if a player signs a 5-year deal, you get 5 or 10% of that 5-year deal. Now, this situation is very difficult because in the first instance, whenever I'm representing a player, you have to have foresight. You've got hindsight, foresight. And the foresight is what happens in a year, 2 years? What happens if you blow up? You've got to have those conversations at the stage of the marriage. You've got to negotiate the divorce when you're negotiating the marriage. So when we get to a situation after a year, 2 years, and the player does blow up, then the player has a say. You've got to speculate. I mean, too many deals are being done where players are just signing contracts, long-term contracts. There's no structure in the contract, there's no buyout clause, and there's no divorce clause. So then what happens is the player starts to get frustrated, and that's why sometimes players look bad, is because they realise, I've got to make this move now, because football's all about timing. You're not always sought after. Demand and supply. I mean, there's a massive demand for someone like Isak, the type of player he is. But at this moment in time, how many clubs have got 100, 120, 130, 150 million? People are talking about Liverpool, yeah, possibly, but then, yeah, and Taken's going to be on the bench.
No, carry on, sorry.
No, go on, Mark.
No, so I was going to say, because you're an agent and you've been in these situations where you've got big profile players that want to engineer that potential move. And they're saying to you, what do we do? How do we get out? And as an agent, you've got to try and give them the best advice possible. Now, Alexander Isak has gone to the Newcastle hierarchy and said, I would like to explore my options. I would like to see what else is out there. Please, will you allow me to have these conversations?
Yeah.
But that is almost a last resort, isn't it? Pushing that button to say, I want to leave.
Yeah.
How difficult is that?
But who is his agent? Does anybody know? Do you know Darmish?
No.
Do you know Mark?
No, I don't know him personally.
Yeah, but you kind of know. So then all of a sudden, the player looks bad. In my eyes, when you're representing players, the player should be the last person who looks bad. You have to protect the player with the way in which you negotiate the contract. And you have to speculate. I mean, he was a good player. He was in Germany, then he went Spain. And now all of a sudden, if someone had speculated that he was going to blow up now, it'd be a completely different situation. But there's no buyout clause.
On the transfer front, big developments this evening on Luis Diaz's future as Liverpool agree a deal to sell the forward to Bayern Munich. We'll tell you the fee and all the key details. And what could that mean for Alexander Isak? The very latest on his future, including Eddie Howe's thoughts. Mark, only one place to start, isn't there? Potential huge sale at Liverpool.
Yes. What a window Liverpool are having at the moment, not just with purchasing players, but generating revenue. And this could be some blockbuster income as well for Arne Slot, which will certainly balance the books, although they have so much room with regards to PSR. But it could be a significant player leaving Anfield. We know that Bayern Munich and Liverpool have agreed a deal for Luis Diaz. It's going to be a €75 million total package, so around £66 million is going to be going into the accounts at Liverpool. That's off the back of days of negotiations. We know that initial offer from Bayern Munich was rejected by Liverpool, which we believe to be around £58.5 million. The message at first was, Luis Diaz is not for sale, thank you very much. However, since they've signed Hugo Ekitike, their stance has obviously relaxed. They felt a lot more comfortable with the business they've done, and they thought, hey, 28 years old, for someone who has 2 years left on his current deal, this feels like the right time. Liverpool will look at this and say, we've got full market value for a player that's going into the latter stages of his career. Obviously, that will get extended because of the Bundesliga. You know, a 28-year-old in the Premier League is like a 26-year-old. You know, he goes over there and he'll have a lot more longevity in the game because of the style of football. But also, I think Liverpool were backed into a little bit of a corner because Luis Diaz had said, I want to explore this opportunity. I feel like I've won everything I possibly can at Liverpool. I love my time there. And now this feels like the right chance. Huge club in Bayern Munich, Bundesliga champions. They always get to the latter stages of the Champions League. And this is a fresh opportunity for me and a fresh chance. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on. He had arrived with that Liverpool squad in Tokyo. He was with the team, but now it's our understanding he'll be travelling to Germany to undertake that medical and put the finishing touches to that deal. But, yeah, huge departure for Liverpool and a player that was really popular with the fans as well.
Mark, you mentioned Liverpool being quite relaxed because Hugo Ekitike has arrived at the club. Just before Hugo Ekitike arrived at the club, there was all sorts of talk, which hasn't stopped, about a certain Alexander Isak. Now, Eddie Howe was speaking to the media, wasn't he, after the game against Arsenal out there in Singapore, and he was asked the question whether Alexander Isak would be making his way to Asia and taking a part in this tour. The answer was no, he will not. He has stayed at home, has Alexander Isak. There is still huge scrutiny over his future. A lot of Newcastle fans might have been quite relaxed when Hugo Ekitike went to Liverpool with regard to Isak's future, but the noise just will not go away, and I guess it is going to intensify now, simply because they are about to sell Luis Diaz, and even though they have got a lot of forward options, Alexander Isak is the name that remains on that list. Liverpool do remain interested. It is a deal that they could yet possibly do. All of the noises coming out of Newcastle is more, we hope Alexander Isak stays. We hope he is part of this future. They do hold all the cards, remember, 3 years left on his contract. However, his head has clearly been turned. We have not heard the last of Isak and potentially going to Liverpool in this window.
Definitely not. No, I agree. I think the thing that Newcastle fans will not want to hear is that Liverpool can still afford to do business. And if you look at their net spend in this summer's window, it's around £150 million because they've sold really well. Since Richard Hughes went into Liverpool, they've sold around £190 million worth of player. That's in just 12 months. So with regards to the finances, Liverpool can still make a deal happen. You look at their current squad, they've got two strikers, Darwin Núñez and Hugo Ekitike. Now, there's a lot of noise and speculation about Darwin Núñez potentially leaving Anfield this summer. So Liverpool are not going to want to go into the season with just one striker in Hugo Ekitike. They're going to want at least two strikers. Hugo Ekitike offers versatility. He can play as a number 9 on his own, or key, he could play with someone else, play with a strike partner. And that's where maybe Alexander Isak would come into play. Liverpool are remaining tight-lipped and very quiet on the scenario. They're comfortable with the squad they have. They're happy with the business they've done. But clearly, they're in the market to sign the very best players in world football, of which Alexander Isak is one.